Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. This promises to be a really awesome one. I have two fantastic guests who have been here before. First of which is my dear friend who I've had multiple times before, Chris Pitt. He's incognito today. And we have Daniel Diaz from Citizens for Sound Money, both of which have been trying to help people in this country, especially in West Virginia, for Chris Pitt when he was part of the House of Delegates, when he would put two bills in for recognizing gold and silver as money in West Virginia, which is currently gathering dust. And our friend Daniel Diaz, currently the CEO, probably will be the CEO for a long time for Citizens for Sound Money. Those of you who have not seen the live that he did yesterday with Kim, is it Coleman?
Yes, Kim Coleman.
Kim Coleman, who's new to Citizens for Sound Money. She's in charge of a different branch. And it was an awesome interview. If you haven't seen it, go see it. So welcome, Chris. Welcome, Daniel. And welcome to the live stream.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us, Tiger. It's always great to be on. I love your intro, man. Your intro is amazing.
My brother-in-law is an amazing dude. I could never do half of what he did. I did a thumbnail from a video he did yesterday, and he didn't know that I'm learning how to do a thumbnail. He said it looked like it was done by a kindergartner. So he took it out and he put his stuff in. And I have to admit, he's better at it than I am.
Yeah. Well, you do have paws and not hands, so you know.
Yeah, and the claws get in the way, dude. You know, the wife comes around, she spills the coffee, the claws come out. I tap the wrong thing on the computer. I need a new job. Do you think I can either get a job at Citizens for Sound Money? You got room for a tiger?
Oh yeah. Well, I need security from time to time, so you'd be great.
What about you, Chris? Think I could get a part-time job with you too?
Sure, absolutely. One over, yes. And actually, I'm probably going to be hiring on. Well, I know you're high. But I don't think you're an attorney, so we are going to be probably hiring on an associate attorney here in the next couple of months. Maybe I could train you as a paralegal. How about that?
Well, just if they make you mad, just send me after them when I'm hungry.
That works. Or when you need to collect. That you can send Tiger.
There we go.
That works for me. Sometimes it gets boring eating antelope and wild boar all the time.
Yeah.
So the topic is basically I'm going to let these two fellas control the conversation because this is their expertise. But both of them have experience in making laws, and both of them are experienced somewhat in the resistance for sound money. So, I'm just going to let you guys take over.
Yeah. Chris, why don't you share with the audience a little bit about your legislation, sound money legislation, and give me a rundown about what it did. And I don't know if you've taken a look at what some of the new sound money legislation or the ALEC model legislation that got passed recently that we helped it with. But share like what your bill did and what happened and what we can do to try to bring it back.
Sure. Well, and thanks for the question. I think that's very, very on topic and I think we can go in a lot of different directions here about what can be done in the future about how to push for legislation in not just West Virginia, but in other states. So what my bill did was it was fairly simple. It wasn't a very big bill. It would just allow for gold and silver to be legal tender in the state of West Virginia. There have been other states that have passed similar legislation. There are states that have passed it, from what I understand, it in at least one of two houses of their legislatures. And so it's been moving in other states. We're trying to get it moving in West Virginia, but that's effectively what it does. Is it allows for gold and silver as legal tender. And I think it's a good step in the right direction in terms of having sound policy, sound money across the country. we were not able to get it put on any kind of agenda. The way it works in West Virginia and the way it works in most states is that for a piece of legislation to get through the legislature, it has to be put on a legislative calendar. So it starts in the committees. It's usually referenced to more than one committee. I think mine was referenced to two committees, a minor committee, which was banking and insurance, and then a major committee, which was finance. So that's really the first step towards getting any piece of legislation passed, is at least in West Virginia, is the chair of the committee has to agree to put it on the agenda. Now,
Right.
the bankers in West Virginia are extremely powerful. And I don't know if it's like that in other states, but they are very powerful. They toss out a lot of money, and that's just how it works. And so it's very difficult to get anything through. But we're keeping it up. I think one of the things that um, would go a long ways towards it is more activism on the part of
Yeah.
activists, people getting involved. There in West Virginia, at least, there didn't appear to be a whole lot of interest in terms of the grassroots. We're hoping to change that moving forward in the future. And I think that's the key component to this legislation or any other legislation of this sort. If you're going to overcome all of the deep pockets, whether it's this issue or another, it can be done. It's just that you have to have legislators that are willing to step up, and you have to have activists that
Right.
are going to do that.
What was the political appetite for from leadership and the chair of the committee? Like, because for the audience that's listening, if you none of you have really been in the political process before, typically not in every state, but in most states, if leadership, meaning the governor, the speaker of the House, the Senate president, and then the chairs of the committees, are not do not have the political will or ambition to push a piece of legislation, it's just not going to pass. So essentially, if leadership is on board, then it'll run right through, right? If it's a favorable bill, leadership usually gets it through. If it's not, then you either need to have a lot of grassroots work, or you need to have grassroots. I like to describe lobbying in two ways. There's a top down approach and the bottom up approach. Grassroots from the citizenry is the bottom up. You knock on the legislators' doors, go to their district offices, go to the Capitol, make phone calls, send letters, send emails. That's grassroots. And then there's the top down approach, where you have large donors do fundraisers, or you set up a political committee in the state, and you basically help finance some of the campaigns. You run a parallel campaign, or you contribute directly. And the best approach is both. If you don't have donors or wealthy individuals who are really passionate about an issue that you're pushing, then you just do grassroots. And if you have that, then you combine the two. So I just wanted to give people an idea of how the process actually works. What was it like when you were in the legislature, and what was the appetite, and how many years did you push this legislation?
I pushed it for, I believe, 3 out of the 4 years that I was there. I believe. I think starting in my second year, I would be introducing legislation on it, if I remember correctly. I might have done it that first year. I just can't. I can't recall, because that was like back in 2021. That was my first legislative session. So, but yeah, so every single or actually, wait a minute. Yeah, back in 2021. That's right. That was the first session. Um, so yeah. So what we did was, there wasn't a whole lot of appetite for it. Leadership wasn't in support of it, at least on the committee level. And that's really the first step. And what I would typically do is, I was one of the guys who I would introduce about 80 different bills. And so my last couple of sessions, I prioritized getting this one on the committee agenda, but it was there. We just couldn't get it through. The word that I got was, well, the bankers don't want it. They don't like it.
Yeah.
And so on that basis, it was basically stopped.
And yeah, and to give you guys who are listening, the audience, an idea, the banking lobby is one of the most powerful lobbies in every state. Like in Florida, the Bankers Association hosts a lobster dinner for the whole legislature. It's for the whole public, but they do it in the promenade in front of the Capitol. People just come, grab lobster dinners, and they contribute to almost every single member of leadership. So that's pretty much across the board, and that's where we've had some issues. Not so much in Florida or Missouri and other states. But like in Texas and Louisiana, they fought really hard. So it really depends on the legislation and how much it interferes with their business. If gold and silver interferes with their business, they're gonna pull out all the stuff. Same with the credit unions. But if it doesn't, and you can get leadership on board, whether or not the banking lobby is against it, you might have a chance. So, and that was, I'm guessing, all 3 years that was the case, right, Chris?
That's right. Yeah, all 3 years. Yep.
Yeah. So, how would you do things differently if you were to push legislation, get back into the legislature, hypothetically? What would you do differently this time?
Start earlier in terms of organizing. That's the main thing that I would do. Try to get activists more engaged earlier on in the process. Not just our legislative session starts in January, early January, except for whenever there's a new governor. Then we start about a month later, and it's only 60 days. I don't know what it is in Florida and other states, but we only have 60 days, a 60-day legislative session, and so
Yeah.
that's it. That's all we have.
Yeah, in Florida, the same thing, but in Florida, they have something called committee weeks that start like in September. The Senate, I think, starts late August. The House starts in mid-September, and it runs through December, and they actually get some business done. And I think filing starts like in September as well. When does bill filing start for you guys in West Virginia?
Yeah, it's just the way it works with our bill drafting is we can introduce, if you are a legislature year round, you're able to at least get legislation drafted, and then after we get it drafted, then there's not much you can do in terms of getting it introduced except until the legislative session begins. However, if you've already drafted, you can carry over everything from the previous year.
Okay.
And so right from you just sign something and you say, I want everything that I filed last year refiled again, and then within the first couple of weeks, it's already in the system.
Gotcha. Okay. So what are the coalitions like? You have the Republicans and Democrats. Is there like a libertarian faction? Is there a Freedom Caucus? What's the status in West Virginia?
We do have a Freedom Caucus, but it's the current status of that is that it's somewhat fractured, and there's almost like the equivalent of two Freedom Caucuses, one that's more establishment oriented, and then one that's more anti-establishment. It's a long story, but we basically have two freedom oriented caucuses. We have, the best way I can describe it is a not just a majority, but a super duper majority of Republicans,
Yeah.
and a lot of people who might be interested in this issue might think, oh wow, that's Republicans
We lost you, Chris.
I think we lost you.
tend to be.
You there? Well, I'll finish Chris's thought until you're back. I think he's going through a dead area.
Yeah, I think what he's trying to say is that there's a large majority of Republicans, and I've heard him say this before. Chris, if you're back, just tell me, and I'll let you do the talking. But I've heard him say that there's a large amount of rhinos in West Virginia.
Yeah, I describe it as a uni party. So, like in Missouri, I mean, it's a super majority as well. In Florida as well. So they don't need the Democratic vote to get anything through. But when you have a uni party, then you have factions within the one party that runs everything. So then that's where it becomes more difficult, right? Because then you have those. Typically, what happens when you have a uni party, for the audience, is you have those that desire power and influence who are aligned with current leadership And they do that so they can be appointed chairs or vice chairs or other positions. So as the next speaker gets in, those loyal party legislators get moved up as well, with the hopes of becoming speaker in the future. Then you have those who are outside of establishment that are Freedom Caucus or some other caucus within the Republican Party, and it's internal fighting. Typically, the desire for power is so much more that the establishment typically has a stronghold, and it's always the Freedom Caucus or another caucus that's fighting to get influence. And sometimes it wins. Sometimes in some states you get the Freedom Caucus that takes over the majority. Like that happened a lot during the Tea Party movement in 2010. The Tea Party movement elected a bunch of Tea Partiers. They got in, they kicked out establishment. I was in South Carolina running a few campaigns, and that's what happened. The establishment was getting beat left and right. So it's a lot of it in elections is timing as well, and so forth. Are you back, Chris?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Did you hear what I was saying
Oh.
about the Uni Party?
Oh, absolutely. And that's 100% what you have in West Virginia. So what you have is you do have a a faction that is more aligned with the lobbyists, the Chamber of Commerce, that whole crowd. They're more aligned there. And then you have, and right now, we have an interesting split in West Virginia. I would say that in the House of Delegates, our lower house, that's generally the case where you have leadership there largely supported by the lobbyists and the special interests and the establishment. Whereas in the state senate, it's not the case. And actually, there is a leadership um, fight going on right now where you actually have the person who lost to be state senate president actually organizing candidates and primary candidates to take on those more aligned with the sitting senate president, who is more aligned more aligned with freedom and liberty and promoting the things that a lot of us are interested in. So you kind of have a split in West Virginia where the House of Delegates is more aligned with the establishment, and then the state senate is more is as you described it as to what's happened in some of those states. Now, let me ask you. You had mentioned how that's. I'd be curious to know about this. You had mentioned that in some of these states that the more freedom oriented um, people in office have taken over. In those states that you mentioned, had they taken over one house or both?
That I was given the example in South Carolina during 2010 with the Tea Party. In right now, the equivalent to the Tea Party is the Freedom Caucus, and I don't know of any states, because South Carolina, that's a battle. Like in Florida, that's not so much. Florida is pretty conservative, but it's a uni party, and we're a very conservative state, so there isn't really those type of factions. Um, and Missouri, I don't know of any Freedom Caucus that's taken over the legislature. That's like the new Tea Party movement, and I'm not sure if anything recently has happened, but it did happen in South Carolina. I think in 2010 it happened in a lot of states. I think it even happened in Florida a little bit, because Florida was a purple state. Now we're a super majority red state. I'm of the mind, because I am a lobbyist for Sound Money, and I've seen the uni party system. I think it's healthier for the state and healthier for the country to have a simple majority with a few seat majority, where it's more 50-50, and you have to work with the other party, than having a super majority, because at that point, when you have close to a 50-50, it unites both parties. It unites the Republicans to be on the same page, and it unites the Democrats to be on the same page, versus now having a fractured party, destroying the party from within. This is just from my personal experience, and I'd rather see a more balanced government, which I think was always the intent. Because I was just watching, going to what was the movie? I was just watching a series that came out about President Garfield. I think Yeah, Garfield. He was
Mhm.
assassinated, right? Um, and the Republican Party was in charge of the House and the Senate for 24 years until his assassination. And after his assassination, and the vice president took over, the Democrats took over the House and the Senate. And what the common theme was, when you have one party in power for too long, the special interests, in this case, it was the bankers that basically bought off the senators in New York, and that's basically the bankers are the problem for the most part, where they get the politicians their pocket, and when you have one party in control, the corruption it becomes rampant. And when I say corruption, I mean not necessarily illegal. The United States, we've set up a political system where you can legally, I don't want to say bribe, that's not the right word. You can legally influence legislators to be in favor. Yeah, it was Garfield, assassinated in 1881. Um, uh, you can influence legislators by donations through the PACs, and that's not illegal. We set it up a system in America where you can actually influence and gain access to people through donations. But that still leads to corruption, because if I receive contributions from a donor, let's say $50,000 to my PAC, or to my campaign, and then another PAC, I'm more inclined to listen to a $50,000 donor than, let's say, just one grassroots person, right? I don't think that's what the intent of the founding fathers was, and that's what we're seeing across the country. So that's a long answer to your question, but I felt like it was important to lay that out.
Yeah, and something else that's I think really important to know is for people out there that are listening is there's a couple of different approaches that people who are in elected office can take when it comes to donations. Like, for example, I know people who are in office that they just take they take the donations, and then whoever wants to give money to them, they just listen to those people.
Yeah,
And so they're basically a chameleon, and they become whatever their donors want them to be. And I've seen so many legislators completely sell out,
those are called
completely.
yeah, those are
Yeah,
called politicians. There's politicians and statesmen, and you don't have a lot of statesmen these days.
absolutely. Now, there's an alternative. What I always did whenever I was in the legislature is I took an alternative approach to that. What I did was, obviously, to win elections, you need to have donations. You've got to raise some money.
Yeah,
But what I did is I've got my principles. I'll always stick by my principles. But then I try to go out and find those people who are going to be more aligned with me and seek donations from them. And so
right.
I think that's a much better approach. Now, one of the things I had to do a lot of times is I literally had to seek out people who were outside of the state of West Virginia. Like, for example, um, groups like American Action Fund, who were associated with Young Americans for Liberty. They had endorsed me. Well, that
Yeah,
was an easy fit for me because that would align with my political beliefs, and
yeah,
so they were able to really step up and help me out quite a bit. And I think that's a way you can get around that, but it's not the easier way to go about things, though. It's really not. It's not easy, but I do think that by going about it that way, if we can have enough people that are in office to at least number one, at a bare minimum, you have to have enough people in there who are going to introduce the bills, whether it's
yeah,
me or somebody else. That's the number one thing, and I think that that's incredibly important. Now, the next step above that, I think, is getting people who are going to be organized, who are going to be calling up their legislators, who are going to be active. They're going to be doing everything that needs to be done to get a piece of legislation through, who are on the ground. And
yeah,
and I think a lot of times these politicians, well, this is something else people need to know, is that when it comes to these people, is they will act. I mean, most people who get to the point where they're in some office, they are professional politicians. And I mean in the sense that you will have a conversation with these people. If anybody ever goes down and talks to your state senator or member of the local House of Reps for your state, you'll come away from conversations thinking that, well, man, he really listened to me. He really values my opinion. Oh man, what a great guy. But that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't. And it doesn't even mean anything the fact that you can. A lot of people think that, oh, because I have access to this certain person, because he'll sit down and talk to me, that means I've got some sort of influence over him. When the truth of the matter, none of that matters. What matters is, number one, whether they're willing to introduce legislation. Number two, whether they're willing to push for it. Number three, whether they're willing to potentially step on people's toes, people in leadership, to get bills on the agenda. And a lot of that sometimes you just have to do that. But it starts with being, number one, having enough people organized to be able to push the right buttons, make calls, write letters, do everything necessary to do that. Now, one of the things that I did whenever I was there, is I was never in any kind of positions of leadership. I didn't seek that out. I just decided early on that just wasn't who I am. That I wasn't going to be that guy. I mean, I wasn't going to go out there and purposely anger people, but when it comes to votes, I always just tried to, every single time I looked at a bill, and I tried to vote the right way. But I think those are the ways to go about it, I think.
There's two tracks, and you described the one that you took. There are those who desire power and influence, that want to be in leadership and will kowtow to whatever leadership wants. And then there are those who are statesmen, who have a set of principles that leadership pretty much ignores. And it's basically like the Ron Pauls. Ron Paul, he rarely got much through, right? He would do the long speeches on the House. He'd do committees and interrogate basically the Fed. And he was principled. Whether he got a lot done is another question. He definitely got legislation pushed through, but he was not as effective as those who kowtowed to leadership and did what they wanted, right? So there's two different types of people that you elect, and the job of the constituency, you, the audience, is to figure out who's going to champion a cause because of the principles, and then who's going to be a politician that just tell you what you want to hear. Right. So, I mean, you got to sit down and figure out what they're passionate about. Look at their website, look at their campaign materials, listen to what they're saying, look at their voting record if they're an incumbent, and see how they voted. Look at their donation. All donations are public. See what companies and what individuals have contributed to their campaigns and their PACs. And then you get a picture of like who is this person listening to and what is he being influenced by. So and that's really how the system works. You have a minority that are very few statesmen. I can count on both hands how many statesmen I've met in my 20, well, how old am I now? 27 years in politics. I can probably count on both hands how many are statesmen. Maybe it's a little bit more if I really think hard, but there are hundreds of politicians that just do it for either influence, power, or money. And there's a correlation between those that are in leadership and success after they get out because of deals and jobs that they get afterwards for pushing legislation from some of those special interests that have paid them off. So it's honestly like it's sad when you talk about the entire American political system is that way, but it is, and that's just the reality people need to understand. And the way you combat that type of corruption, if you want to call it so, is by major grassroots fundraising. Because Ron Paul was famous for having the most money raised with small dollar donations. That's what you're trying to find. And if you're listening to this and you're a sound money advocate, if you're in West Virginia or any state that you live in and you want to get sound money legislation through, find a champion who believes in sound money or is a true principled statesman who needs to learn about sound money and have them take up the mantle and push that legislation, because there's nothing more important in the legislature than somebody who works hard. There are statesmen and politicians that do nothing. They have principles. They vote a certain way, but they'll never push legislation. They'll never work the system. They'll never go to leadership and try to like, hey, let's get this done. And then there are those who do, like Senator Moon and Representative Hardwick in Missouri, the two hardest fighting legislators that I've met in recent times, and Representative Bankson and Senator Rodriguez in Florida. They got their legislation through. They're hard workers, probably the hardest workers in the legislature. They spoke to the left and the right and leadership, and did everything they could to get sound money legislation. And that's the job of the constituency. You need to identify statesmen who are going to work hard for you as their constituent. Chris, you there? I think we lost Chris.
Chris, you there? Let me see if he's going to have that. Maybe I can just get him to come in.
Yeah, I am. I lost you there for a second. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. I think we lost you again.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have better reception here in a second. Sorry for any if you've lost me there. But yeah, so absolutely, we have to have advocates who are going to be pushing for this, and so the legislation. What was passed in Florida? What were we able to get passed in Florida?
We were able to. So in Florida, we made gold and silver legal tender with a certain amount of a certain purity. So let me backtrack a little bit. Florida's a long story. We pushed legislation there for 2 years, and what we got out was about 80-90% of what we wanted, because bureaucrats changed the law. And basically, let me get to there before I finish that sentence. The initial legislation that we filed, that City Sound Money presented to the sponsors, was 1 page. It made gold and silver legal tender, recognized electronic transfer of gold and silver as legal tender, and we got rid of sales tax. That was the original version. But then after we worked with Senate staff, we worked on the Senate side. There was another company that was working on the House side. The Senate staffers had an issue with the electronic currency side of things, and they said there had to be a regulatory framework. So what we identified was the money services business licenses. And instead of writing an entire new regulatory framework for accepting electronic gold and silver for the payments of debts and recognizing the underlying asset as legal tender, we just had them modify the money services businesses regulations and expand it to custodians of gold and silver that vault the gold for the electronic payment systems and also redeem the gold. So we just brought those people underneath that framework. So we got electronic currency, that we set up an electronic currency system, putting them under the money services business for gold and silver. Then the part where we initially we made all gold and silver legal tender that met certain thresholds. We wanted it at 90%, but the Senate staff and leadership didn't want it 90% silver or gold. They elevated it to the same as COMEX, which is 995 pure gold. And 999 pure silver, which was fine. We were willing to accept that. But then the final draft, we had 1 week to get this through the legislature. The final draft that came in, they put a line in there that effectively made nothing legal tender. They basically said that it has to meet those qualifications, 995 and 999 pure, but it can't have any other markings or designs on the bullion for it to be legal tender. If you know anything about bullion, almost every single coin or round has a design, and every single bar has a serial number. So that was a mistake, because the drafters, the staff that took over the writing of the legislation, didn't understand the gold and silver industry. And because we had no time to fix it, it was passed with that language. So effectively, nothing is legal tender in Florida until we amend the law to expand it. But other than that, if that did not happen, Florida would have had one of the best sound money legislations, and it has the most robust electronic payment system regulations in the country. And then because Florida was doing this, Texas thought Florida was good model, and they took that exact same language. So nothing is legal tender in Texas, and they have to wait till 2027 to fix it.
Okay. All right. Well, and it sounds like, do you guys have any kind of model legislation that you like?
Yeah. Well, we went to ALEC, and we helped get ALEC model legislation passed. There is a section that we would ask you to cut out if you use the ALEC model. ALEC is based off the Arkansas legislation. There's a part in that we didn't really have the two sponsors, which were from Arkansas and ALEC. ALEC, for those who are listening, is the American Legislative Exchange Council, which is the largest conservative gathering of legislators in the country. They meet twice a year and they pass conservative model legislation. So we joined our 501c3 joined the Sound Money Movement as a nonprofit member, and we were able to be in the task force, which are like committees that try to get legislation. We were able to fix some parts of the bill, but the one part that we didn't fix was the state running a state depository, and basically controlling the electronic payment system, which we're against. So when we're telling people to look at model legislation, look at ALEC, just take that section out. And then if you really want the best legislation in the world, just copy Missouri. Missouri has hands down the best sound money legislation in the country because it's done, I think, 5 major things: made all gold and silver legal tender. It forces the state to accept digital gold and silver for the payments of taxes and debts. It enforces gold and silver contracts. It puts anti-confiscation language so that no governmental entity, federal, local, can confiscate gold and silver without due process within the state. It also allows business owners to pay their employees in gold and silver. They both choose. And it got rid of capital gains taxes. They didn't have sales tax in the state of Missouri. So Missouri did 6 things. It's hands down the most permissive sound money legislation. If a gold round or coin has 1% gold, it's legal tender. 1% silver is legal tender. It's the best legislation in the country. We would have wanted Missouri to be the model legislation, but the two for ALEC, but the 2 legislators in Arkansas had already filed that legislation.
Well, one thing I want to also talk about too, just to expand and clarify on what you were just talking about. Um, when we say model legislation, let me. I'm just going to explain that to everybody.
Yeah.
It's somewhat explaining, if you want to call it that, but essentially it's this: there are all sorts of organizations out there that are kind of the experts in their field. They are the experts. They've got attorneys, people who are familiar with proper legalese. They draft what's called model legislation. That means it's what people like me, whenever I was in the legislature, would look to. I was a big fan of model legislation when I was there, because if I went to an organization that I could trust, I could just rely on what they've come up with. So that I'm not just reinventing the wheel. And so because otherwise what happens is the process is I come up with an idea, I take it to my bill drafting department at the legislature, and then based on what I tell them, they come up with a basic form of what they think I want. And then there'll be some back and forth, and I might not like certain things, I might like certain things, and it kind of just holds everything back. It delays things. Whereas if you have an organization that you can trust, you go to that organization, they have it all worked out ahead of time. And then and I get for example, in West Virginia, I would get a piece of legislation that was model legislation. I would take it to bill drafting. They would put in the proper citations and they would figure out where in the law, where in the West Virginia code it would need to go. So
Right.
that's all they're doing. But I'm a big fan of it, and that's the reason I was asking about that, to see if you had any. That's really, really good to know. So what was the reason the final product had that problematic language in it?
We just didn't have time. So the way that, just how you run out of time in the legislature, we were running out of time in the task force. That's what they
Mhm.
call their committees. You have public members of ALEC and you have private industry members in ALEC. We joined task force, and the private industry outnumbers the public like 4-1.
Mhm.
So that public vote has a heavier weight than the private vote. And by the time we met with the legislators to fix a few things, we brought it up. There was questions, and there just wasn't enough time to get the model legislation to our liking. And the 2 sponsors did say that they would be willing to amend and change the model legislation in December. Hopefully, that's still the case. I'm gonna be there in Dallas Fort Worth, and the first week of December. That's where the next ALEC meeting is. Are you? You can join as a private member if you wanted to, or just show up.
Yeah, and I know here in West Virginia, the main person here who is involved with ALEC is State Senator Patricia Rucker, and
There you go.
so she's very highly involved with ALEC, and so yeah, I could talk with her, and yeah, I might consider. Well, I'll look at my calendar. Maybe I can show up to that.
Yeah, that'll be great. I'll definitely be there. And you want to the deadline for getting the hotel rate passed on Friday, but definitely check it out and see if you can attend maybe with the delegation. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I would say I can point out after the call if you're interested in submitting legislation to some of your friends in the legislature on that model legislation. I'll advise you what to take out, or we can just take the Missouri legislation and just fix it for the state of West Virginia. Missouri, hands down, I'm telling you, is the best sound money legislation on the planet. There's not a state that has done it better.
Great.
So, especially with that anti-confiscation language, which is a major concern with a lot of people who are afraid of the federal government confiscating gold and silver, that empowers the state to protect private vaulting and citizens from unlawful seizure, which I believe is unlawful even if the federal government does it. Because now the state can step in and like, no, you have to go through a state court and give us a reason why you're confiscating this gold. That I think that's the stopgap to prevent the federal government from confiscating gold and silver. Because there are some companies out there that believe that the reason why that part of the Arkansas ALEC model legislation is in there is because the other company that was advising actually helped get that version of the legislation passed this year in Arkansas believes that the state should operate depositories on behalf of the citizenry because they believe the state is better prepared to fight off the federal government. But the problem is that now you're creating a competing industry that's state run against private vaulting companies, and ALEC is a free market organization. We've discussed that with multiple people at ALEC in leadership, and we are a libertarian leaning organization. We think the free market does things best. Anytime the state gets involved in the private industry and private markets, it ruins the industry. And two examples of really bad bills or laws that are looking to get passed is in Connecticut and Michigan. They're both trying to set up not just a bullion depository that controls the electronic payment systems. Michigan's trying to create their own gold and silver currency called Michcoin, backed by gold and silver. They want to set up retail stores. And then in Connecticut, they actually advise the state government to sell gold and silver below market prices to undercutting the private sector. And that's the problem with state depositories and dealing with private. We're not against states having their own depositories holding state funds and paying their state employees. That's different. That's within the realm. But we don't want the state competing against the private sector.
Right. And something that was a big issue whenever I was in the legislature is a lot of people think that, well, if we have this Republican legislature, then, they're going to be looking out for protecting the private sector. Well, one of the things that I found was oftentimes what happens is bills get pushed through and they're actually being pushed, like more government expansion is being pushed by the large corporate interests. And what they do is the reason they want more government, the reason they want more regulation, the reason they want more taxes is number one, with taxes, they get taxed more, they just pass it on to the consumers. But number two, with regulation, what it does is when you have this regulation out there, they can absorb it. Larger corporations, what are these regulations that are put forth, they can absorb it. Their smaller competitors cannot. And effectively, it puts them out of business. If there's a small business who's having to deal with a bunch of regulations, they don't have the army of lawyers to figure it all out. And so they're going to be more exposed. And so that's what we're up against a lot of times in state legislatures is large corporations, large businesses advocating for more government regulation and more monopolization. I mean, really, if you think about gold and silver and that issue, and the reason the banks don't want it is it's a microcosm for what they do, what a lot of larger corporations do in general, which is fight in favor of effectively state-sponsored monopolies. It's in favor of more regulation that just protect them, and that's what happens. They don't want the competition. these larger corporations want the least amount of competition as possible, and they're
Right.
willing to do whatever it takes to take out competition, whether it's gold and silver or anything else.
And that's the problem with public-private partnerships, where the state chooses one winner, right? That sets up effectively a state monopoly, because they chose a company, and that company has an advantage that other competitors don't. So the solution to that, which we presented and we got in Florida, was just create regulations for licensure through money services businesses, right? So if you want to operate an electronic payment system of gold and silver, and the state has an interest to protect their consumers, especially in Florida, we have a much older population, lots of scams. I think it was like over $2 billion in crypto scams happen. So the state has an interest in protecting the consumers. So we just bring them into regulations like the money service transmitters or businesses, and just have them licensed. It's $100,000 fee. Not any Joe Schmo is gonna get $100,000 just to get a license to be a money services transmitter, money services business. And 100%. It's called rent seeking. When a company wants to be the only provider for the state in a public-private partnership, it's because a lot of times they're looking to get money from saying, hey, we're the official state-sponsored bullion depository or whatever. And that's a competition. And what happens is states, they get funding from taxpayers, and if they have a surplus, there's something called the loss leader. Walmart was known for this, and Costco early on, where they would buy things, and they do it now. Sam's Club, Walmart, they sell gasoline at a loss to bring people into their doors to make a profit. And that's the problem when you have states or large corporations. They have no problem losing money on something, but a smaller bullion dealer or a private vaulting company can't do that. And then you undercut the vaulting fees and everything. And that's the problem with people who trust the state. Here's an example that I use in our interview on Friday with Kim Coleman. What happened 5 years ago during COVID? Like for the people who say they trust the state more than the federal government. Yeah, I trust the state more than the federal government. Do you really trust the state? Their lockdowns during COVID, they took our civil liberties away. For almost 2 years in some states. Thank God I lived in Florida, and DeSantis saw this, and he followed Georgia's lead and lifted the sanctions. But can you really trust a state from not confiscating your own gold? Look what they did during COVID, and they took our civil liberties away. So that's the problem. And there's two different types of conservatives. You have someone like me who's a fusionist. I'm a libertarian economically, and I believe in traditional family values. I'm more conservative on the family value side or the social issues. Then you have those who are socially conservative and not so much libertarian, and they believe in government intervention as long as it's within their ideology and moral code. And that's what we're having right now. We have people who trust the state because they think they should be able to legislate whatever their ideology is. And then there's the libertarian mindset where we want free markets and we don't competition. We don't want the state competing against the private sector. So that's the gist of it. And I think we're aligned on that.
Yeah, one of the things that came up again and again whenever I was in the legislature was that very topic that you're talking about. Whereas a lot of times you would have Democrats stating, "Well, you must not be I don't want to give an issue. You must not be in support of states' rights." Well, look, I'm in favor of individual rights. Okay, that's where we're going to be best. We're going to be best when decisions are made at the most local level, and the most local level is the individual.
Yeah,
it really is. Me making decisions for me and my family, what I think is best for me and my family, that doesn't get any more local than that. And so, and you are absolutely right. 100%. The states can be just as oppressive and sometimes more oppressive than the federal government.
New York, California. I mean, you look at the Northeast, look at the Western states. I mean, it could be a lot worse.
Absolutely. Yep.
I mean, even
Well,
municipalities, even counties can be a lot worse. I mean, we had instances in Florida where we had the state legislature had to crack down and actually strip supervisor elections, mayors of their title, and district attorneys, because they were so oppressive and violating, people's liberties, civil liberties, or pushing ideology onto their residents. So it's a two-way street. It isn't just federal government bad, state bad. I mean, you have bad in every sector. That's why it's so important to elect the right people. You need to elect people of principles, statesmen, and not politicians who are going to tell you what you want to hear or bribe you with funding from subsidies or whatever. And that's what a lot of politicians do. They promise all this revenue through grants or subsidies to their districts, and people are like, oh, we get free money. It's currency, but they say we get free money. They just try to buy their votes, and it's an uphill battle. It'll be a battle that we're always going to constantly fight in our republic. But this matter of gold and silver, sound money, is not a partisan issue. It's really a human rights issue, because gold and silver are freedom. What they have done by imposing fiat currency upon us as the only currency, it's a theft mechanism. The dollar, the yen, the euro, they are designed to steal our economic energy, our time, and our wealth. That is what they do. The dollar is just a way to steal the wealth of the people, and gold and silver is the only mechanism to protect yourself from the theft of government. Control, right, Marsh? The government, I don't know of any government in the history of humanity that has willingly given up control and power. I haven't. So,
no.
That's,
And the other thing that's really important to note here is the importance of, a lot of people will talk about how we have this divided government. I mean, most of the time I think that's one of the reasons for all of the problems we have in our country. Divided government, and the fact that we have three co-equal branches of government, at least in theory, but to an extent in practice as well. We have three co-equal branches of government that divide power. I mean, there's something can be said, though, on some level for, it is very difficult to get legislation through. But at the same time, even though it's difficult to get legislation through, that's it. It makes it less likely for the politicians to be able to strip us of our rights. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a big process. And even, for example, and that's what people have to understand, that even if, let's say, a piece of legislation gets through the legislative process, it passes the legislature, it's signed by the governor, then at that point, it can get tested in court. And
right.
so that's something else that I think is incredibly important. Having those divided powers and living in a constitutional republic we're very fortunate to have that. For all the problems we have as a country,
Yeah.
it's really a good thing.
No, 100%. And we have to make sure that the states follow the Constitution, right? I'm not going to mention what state. There's a state that passed some financial regulations that they worded it and its semantics that what they set up wasn't a bill of credit. But it doesn't matter what they call it. It's the state creating a currency, which is a violation of Article 1, Section 10 and Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Only Congress can create quote unquote money or currency. What the Constitution does give the states the right to do. And it's the only country in the world that the federal government or the federal entity, the monarchy, whatever, gives the smaller jurisdictions the constitutional authority and right to recognize gold and silver coin as tender for the payment of debts. And that is what this whole sound money movement is about. I mean, we're the only country that the states can say, hey, the federal government, you're going to make, $5 different for the people who are watching. The United States has $5 different. I'll get to that in a second. But you're making the Federal Reserve currency, Federal Reserve notes, the main currency. Well, we don't like that, because you're stealing not just economic energy of the taxpayers and the people that are our residents and citizens, but you're stealing economic energy and money from the states. So we're going to declare gold and silver coin legal tender, and the states can decide that however they want. And that's why model legislation is so important, because there's so many different versions out there. That's why we went to ALEC, we're pushing one kind of model because it just makes it easier. Let's take that and modify it for the states. So that's why it's so important, because the federal government is 78% of Americans. The study came out last year in the summer. 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck with not $1,000 to their name. And that's because the central bank and the federal government has been running deficit spending, which is inflating the currency, creating more inflation, and stealing the wealth of the people. And the people who benefit are the governments, the banks, and the large institutions and credit card companies that print currency or credit out of nowhere, and they get the full purchasing power of that new created currency. It's called the Kenelon effect. Those closest to the printing of currency or credit get the full purchasing power. And as those entities, the government, the soldiers, the banks, spend that into the economy, that inflation trickles down and prices rise. That's the definition of inflation. It's the printing and the expansion of the currency supply. And because of the efficiency of the invisible hand of the free markets, the free market economy is like, oh, there's a lot of currency, there's a lot of cash seeking limited goods. So let me raise the price. And that's why we have inflation. And the reason why we're having almost 10% inflation year over year is because the amount of printing of this currency that they're doing, and our people's paychecks aren't keeping up. Are you getting 10% a year increase in your income every year? Not many people do. Mm-hmm. And unless you're keeping up with real inflation, not what the numbers of the government are telling you, then the state has a responsibility to protect their residents and give them the option to save in something that protects their economic energy, which is gold and silver.
Absolutely. And it's a tough thing to fight against with those special interests who are going against it. But so when you brought up this idea with ALEC, had they never had any legislation of this sort in the past?
We were talking to the president of ALEC. I forget his name. He's an economist. He's an Austrian economist. He said there were some movements back in 2011, 2012, shortly after Utah did it, but it didn't really go anywhere. So really, this was the first time there was actually any model legislation. There were discussions, but nothing presented. So this year was the first time they pushed sound money legislation or model legislation in ALEC.
That's great. Well, I was curious about that to see and it doesn't sound like you had a whole lot in principle, you didn't have a whole lot of pushback, right?
No, and the private sector and subcommittees. So you have a subcommittee before in ALEC. When we did the subcommittee hearing, myself and our members, Goldback joined as well. The private sector voted against the model legislation because of the issues we brought up about the electronic currency and the control of the rent seeking part of it. And then we had people come to us at the task force, like, are we voting for this or not? Public officials from Michigan and everything. And like, well, we're working on with the sponsor. So we could have killed the model legislation, but we worked on a deal, and we're like, look, it's better we get something, because they gave us the verbal commitment that they will be willing to change the model legislation. It's actually up on ALEC now, so I don't know if it's too late. So we're going to have to inquire and see, is it possible to change or amend model legislation that was already passed? So that's something that's going to have to happen next year. It's already too late to do that this year, so we have to follow up with that. But yeah, it was the first time it's happened, and we really did try to get the best legislation. And the private sector has a lot of weight. I mean, if the private sector votes against it, then it has to be a supermajority of the public sector. That I think like 75 or 80% of the public sector have to vote for it if the private sector votes against it, or something like that. So maybe it has to be closer to 90. I forget the threshold, but they break it down. It's weighted because they're so outnumbered. But ALEC is great in the sense that it's not like being in the Capitol, Chris. Have you ever been to an ALEC meeting?
No. I've just got friends who've been to it, who are pretty involved with it.
Yeah. So one, you're outside of the Capitol, so you can talk about anything. And it's, every night you have gala dinners or receptions, and you're just having fun, and you're really talking human to human. You're getting outside of that whole, like, we're in the government building, I'm a legislator, and you're just people. And now you can actually talk to the legislators and talk and share your expertise from the private sector and your concerns. honestly, it's so worth it. We're a nonprofit, and we're trying to raise the money so that we can continue joining, because it's $10,000 for nonprofit, $15,000 for for-profit companies. I think it's only $250 for public officials, or maybe
Yeah.
something like that. But it's so important, I think, to be represented in ALEC because it's the largest gathering. They had this last summer was the largest increase in the largest gathering of legislators in ALEC's history, and it's growing
Wow.
and it's influential. And it's so important that we get real model legislation passed. And this is, you should definitely go. I mean, if you should clear your calendar. If there's something in the place, move something around. Maybe get another attorney to go to court for you or whatever,
Yeah.
and show up, because it's 100% worth it.
Great. Fantastic.
Daniel, got a question. Is that just for the legislature, or can general people go to that also?
You can attend. You can pay to be in a like just to attend. I think to attend it's a little over $1,000 a person, and you can just show up to everything. The only thing you can't go to are closed meetings, which are pretty much committee or task force meetings. But you can participate. They have like an exhibitor hall. You can also pay to go to the dinner and sit with the different delegates. So anybody can attend. It's just more expensive for non-members. I mean, for example, as a member, I have to pay $800 to attend per conference, and then I have to pay for hotel and flight. So anybody can attend.
Okay. I'll look into that. See what I can possibly do.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm just a regular Joe, but it would be kind of nice to be able to learn more and be part of it.
Yeah, and if you guys have the time and the money and you can get away for the first week of December, I encourage you. It's good to see the process. It's like a more pared down version of government, because it's not a government building. It's just the private sector and it's conservatives coming together and discussing and sharing ideas, and things really get hammered out, because when you meet as a lobbyist, when you meet with a legislator during legislative season or even committees, you might get 15 minutes. And if you're lucky, you might get 30 minutes. That's it. And you might get one other meeting if they're not the sponsor of your bill, right? And there's hundreds of legislators. So when you're at ALEC, you can literally sit down, have a drink, talk, go have coffee outside of meetings that you don't want to attend. And it definitely makes a difference. So it's definitely, I recommend anybody who wants to meet legislators, learn what's discussing. Some of the policies, bills that pass throughout the country get sparked at ALEC, so I can't speak more highly enough about the organization.
Daniel, do you ever go and, well, it sounds like your organization hasn't been, how long has it been around, your organization?
Since March 14th, 2021.
Okay. Do you ever go and testify before committees on
Always.
legislation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Great.
fly. I've testified in New Hampshire, Florida, Missouri, Alaska, Montana. Where else? A few other states. Not every state had legislation go through. We only got 6 states passed legislation. Most of the other states failed. But if I didn't attend, one of our partners did. So we have a coalition of companies, and we just launched the Sound Money Trade Association. So we're going to have a lot more companies joining. And then that's an independent company that we're the chartering organization. So we have a perpetual charter, which is the Sound Money Trade Association. So now the whole industry is getting involved. So what if I can't go? Like, for example, Goldback has Kim Coleman. She would go. Like, she went to Louisiana and Texas when I couldn't because I was busy in Florida. So we have like a group of people who go and testify, and it's growing. Our organization is growing, and our coalition is growing.
Great. Well, I'll tell you what, it's sometimes it's very, very helpful. One of the things that some of the tricks that they pull sometimes is they'll agree to put legislation. I'm talking about the committee chairs. They'll agree to put legislation on the calendar, but it'll be literally the day before. It'll be the day before. It'll just say, okay, we're going to do this bill. And so have you ever been in that situation where you had to scramble to get somewhere to testify?
Yeah, Montana, I had to do it remotely. not Alaska. Alaska, they do a few days ahead of time. Missouri, that happened a few times, but I was luckily stationed in Missouri for 2 months because Florida, every other year we go from January. We have 60 days also, January to March. And then from March to May, I was in Missouri in 2024. And they did that, and we literally had to go to the Capitol the next day and testify.
Yeah.
So that happens. I hate that, man. They give you 24 hours. In Florida, that happens too. I think Florida, it's 24, 48 hours. They might put it on the they might finish the legislation, put it on the docket on Friday, or submit it to the committee, and then it shows up on Monday, and the hearing's Wednesday, or it might maybe late on Tuesday. I think it has to be exactly 24, 48 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, same thing. But I was stationed all year last year in Florida, and I did fly out to a couple other places when they needed me.
Yep. Got it.
Yeah. So any questions? I see the chat going like crazy, Tiger. Are there any questions that were brought up that we missed?
There were a few, but I told them to hold their questions until you guys were ready, and then to go ahead and put it in caps. I hope the lion's share of the chat had caught that comment. So if any of you have asked questions, feel free to go ahead and put them back in there. I'm going to scroll real fast to see if I can find something that has not been put in caps. That most of the thing I've seen has not been in caps. So feel free to go ahead and retype what you want answered and put it in caps so that we can find it quickly.
Yeah, and I'll just say this for the audience. The Sound Money movement is a growing movement, but we're the only nonprofit organization that is doing this. We're not captive to any company. We're not a company. All the other companies out there, because we're the only organization, all the other companies out there are for-profit companies. They're either running as a DBA or they're partnered with another company, and they have their own way of doing things. We've been trying to bring the whole movement together. We've been very successful to bring a lot of companies and organizations together. Like the Missouri Freedom Initiative, they're not an official nonprofit, but they're just an organization of grassroots people in Missouri, and we're partnered with them. I wouldn't call them a nonprofit because they're not formed as anything. They're just citizens that decided to call themselves the Missouri Freedom Initiative. If there is only another nonprofit, I would call them the only other nonprofit in the Sound Money movement. And here's a question. The purchase of physical and e-gold through the pension fund should not be taxed at the local, state, or federal level. Yeah, and the only thing we can control, Ruby's 200, is the local and state. When it comes to the federal government, and pension funds, maybe. Yeah, if it's a government, if it's a government pension, I don't think there's any taxes. But let's say you are a private company and you want to put gold and silver into your 401k. We can get rid of the local taxes and the state taxes, but the federal taxes are determined by the IRS. And we are working Goldback, the Sound Money Trade Association. We are working with legislators in U.S. Congress to try to pass the Monetary Metals Act that Alex Mooney submitted. It gets rid of all federal taxes on gold and silver. Alex Mooney is, I think, a rep in West Virginia, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was one of our reps. He was my rep for a while. And so, but then he ran for US Senate and it didn't work out. So, but I'll tell you what, Alex always had an outstanding voting record.
Yeah.
I mean every 100%. Like I don't know if one piece of legislation he ever voted on that I would have voted differently. I mean, he's just outstanding.
He's a statesman. When I was executive director of Young Americans of Freedom back in 2010 and 11, he's a Yaffer. We call ourselves Yaffers, people who were part of the Yaff organization. And him and I were close back in D.C. and we kind of lost touch since he moved to West Virginia from Maryland. But yeah, no, Alex is great. He's a true statesman. He's a true conservative. I see a couple questions. Neil Han Dynasty asked a question. Would the reevaluation of gold keep the fiat dollar around like the start of 1971? The reevaluation of gold is a scam. The way that they're presenting it in the Bitcoin Act of 2025. All that's going to do is create more inflation. Here's what's going to happen. If the Bitcoin Act of 2025 happens, they're going to reevaluate gold whatever they decide, whether it's the current market price, 10,000, 100,000, whatever they want per ounce of gold. Then the Federal Reserve is going to turn in all the gold certificates to the Treasury. Then the Treasury is going to issue brand new gold certificates and give it back to the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve is going to print new currency to buy back those gold certificates. And those gold certificates are going to be 100-year bonds. And then what happens? If they do it at the current market rate, they're going to print close to $1 trillion of new currency. Then they're going to take that new currency and they're going to buy Bitcoin with it. And then that Bitcoin is going to be given to the exchanges that sell that Bitcoin, and then those exchanges are going to pay their employees, their executives, and that inflation is going to trickle down. So it's just going to create instant inflation. It's not a solution. The only solution is making gold and silver legal tender. Full stop. How can we help get gold recognized in pension funds at the state level? You need to pass legislation. In fact, I wrote model legislation for Florida, and we're going to put that on the website. We have what we're calling the Gold and Silver Reserve Act, so that the states put at least 10% of their rainy day fund or their pensions into gold and silver. So you have to pass state legislation to do that, because right now most states do not allow the investment of physical bullion or even digital gold and silver. They choose to do that if it's not part of a current either qualified public depository, which are basically banks or large institutions. So you have to modify state law to allow the Treasury to buy gold and silver. But that's how you do it. Is there any interest by states in taking gold or silver in payment for taxes? Yes, that's what we're trying to do. Well, kind of. So of the 11 states that have passed sound money legislation making gold and silver legal tender, some have made all gold and silver legal tender. I think there's 4 or 5 states that have done that. Others have only recognized federal gold and silver mintage as legal tender. Only one right now takes gold and silver for payments of taxes and debts. That's Missouri, and it's only digital. The problem with forcing states to accept physical gold and silver is that they add a massive, what's called a fiscal note. A fiscal note is a document that a committee puts together that estimates what it would cost the state and the taxpayers to implement that piece of legislation. And if we force the states to accept physical gold and silver, that ranges from anywhere from like $3 million up to $27 million or more. Like Missouri said, there is no cap. They said it was like 20 million, and they could go even higher because they assume wrongly, but they have to hire assayers, they have to vault the gold, they have to test the gold and have the machines, and they have to have coin counters, and this is all the stuff they put in. The solution to that, we try to push this in Missouri, but they didn't have the political appetite when they passed the Constitutional Money Act, is just create a license agreement with bullion companies or companies that already assay gold and silver, and instead of the company giving the cash, when you bring a bullion a dealer or a gold and silver dealer, gold and silver or pawn shop, gold and silver, they give you cash. Well, instead of doing that, just have that company get licensed to transfer the cash for payment of taxes. That's the only way that I see getting around the state not wanting to accept bullion. And in that case, it's just a licensing agreement where the state will take gold and silver for the payment of taxes and debts, but it will be remitted in fiat currency. Unfortunately, that's the biggest problem we've had with getting states to accept physical. There would just have to be the political appetite for the state to accept physical gold and silver. And I think the step is to get them to pass a federal, the state Gold and Silver Reserve Act. Now the state is buying physical gold and silver. And if they do that, then it only makes sense that, hey, why don't we get more gold and silver for the rainy day fund or the pension fund and take gold and silver from the citizenry for the payment of taxes and debts. I think the step to getting states to accept gold and silver is setting up a reserve. And right now, the only state that's done that are 2 states, Wyoming and New Hampshire, the only states I think that have reserve funds in gold and silver. You see us going back to a pre-1933 economic? No, and I don't want a gold standard. The problem with that gold standard, for those who don't know, is when the government pegs a certain amount of gold and silver to the fiat currency, or not fiat, but the certificates, right? So it was 15 to 1, 15 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold. And then it was $20 an ounce, then it was $35 an ounce. That destroys it, because then the government can just print more dollars and debase the currency. And then we have a problem in 1971 where those who thought the dollar was as good as gold, like France and other countries, started sending in their dollars getting their gold back, and there just wasn't enough. We can't trust government. So I wouldn't want a pre-1933 economic system where the dollar is pegged to a certain amount of gold. I want to just make gold and silver legal tender. The technology is there. We have gold backs now that you can use fractional gold cash. You have constitutional silver. We can start minting constitutional silver again. There's private rounds that you can verify that are 999 fine. Tiger's showing different examples. We have plenty of gold and silver that you can transact in. You can't print gold and silver. You can print dollars backed by gold and silver. And we'll just have the same problem because the government has shown itself not to be trustworthy or reliable in keeping a gold and silver standard. If they do decide to do something like a pre-1933 gold and silver standard, then the only option and solution I would be open to is that they peg a certain percentage, whether it's 40%, which is the economic threshold where if you back any currency with at least 40% gold, it stabilizes that currency, but it has to be free floating. And why do I say free floating? Let's say it's statutorily required that the Treasury keeps a 40% backing of the dollar. Well, if it's free floating and the federal government decides, let me print some more currency, well, then that 40% is going to keep up with inflation. They might need to buy more gold to keep it, but maybe we do something where every year they reevaluate how much gold there is to the amount of currency in holding, and they just buy more gold. But it has to be free floating because gold and silver does an accounting of how much currency is in circulation.
Got a question on that because I would periodically hear our friend Lynette Zhang saying she'd like to see the dollar at least 40% attached to gold.
Yeah.
And my concern is we really have an undervalued metal in gold, silver too. If it was truly pegged to its real value and kept up with what has gone on over the decades, there's not enough gold and silver to peg it to the dollar, and the value would be so high.
Yeah. It would probably be something like $50,000 an ounce if you do 40%. It's like hundreds of thousands of dollars an ounce if you do 100%. Mm-hmm. So in that case, if we did reevaluate and pegged, not what they're trying to do with the Bitcoin Act where they reevaluate gold and print more currency, but if they really do peg gold to the dollar, it's going to be a reverse Cantillon effect. There will be a short period with those who have been stacking gold and silver with that new reevaluation get the full purchasing power of that reevaluation, that inflation, right? So for a short amount of time, we can spend our gold at that full purchasing power, but as the system continues in our economy, that will basically equal out. Prices will go up, everything, So you have to be. There's not an easy solution, guys. It's either the dollar dies and we have a new system, whatever that system is going to be, it's going to be digital, like it or not. It's going to be digital and backed by real world assets. We're going to go, if you look at what the East is doing, it's going to be backed by some type of gold and silver and some other real world assets, whether it's already mined gold and silver or it's natural resources or strategic resources backing that currency, which is just inflation. I mean, if you're not taking the gold and silver out of the earth and you're saying, hey, we have this much gold and silver in the earth, let's print more currency. It's just semantics. It's just inflation. So
and that might not happen. I mean, if you look at the current situation, right. LBMA has been tapped out. They borrowed from COMEX. They've been tapped out. Refiners aren't even taking alloyed silver right now. And from what I've seen on the silver stock market, the price has come down because they don't want to purify 90 or 92.5 silver. So they definitely don't want to have silver ore because they want to remake those COMEX bars to replenish COMEX and LBMA. It's a very complex problem, and there's no simple answer other than having an alternative.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the solution really is making gold and silver legal tender, so that the government can do whatever they want with their fiat currency. And then the people have the option to use gold and silver in their day-to-day transactions and really save in gold and silver. And by elevating gold and silver to legal tender, you get the same legal protections in transactions as you do with Federal Reserve notes. Any other questions? Question. Will Chris Pitt and Daniel collab to make California recognize gold and silver legal tender? I would do anything to get California to recognize gold and silver legal tender, but that's probably, I don't know if that's going to happen in my lifetime unless it happens federally. I mean, who knows? I mean, some people like Andy Scheckman from Miles Franklin never thought he'd see gold and silver legal tender in the state of Florida or anywhere for that matter. So who knows? I will be more than happy to lobby anywhere where there is political appetite to make gold and silver legal tender. The blue states are harder. We're working right now in Maryland because the bullion industry has formed the trade association, the Sound Money Association of Maryland, because them getting rid of the tax exemption of sales tax on gold and silver has effectively killed the industry. Their business is down 80% across the board, and all the surrounding states, their businesses have gone up 300 to 500% because people are not buying bullion in the state of Maryland, and they are livid and they are organized, and we're pushing gold and silver as legal tender. We're getting rid of all taxes on gold and silver, and we're getting rid of capital gains tax on gold and silver in Maryland. And they are looking to hire one of the most influential lobbying firms in Maryland. So Maryland is the first blue state. If it works in Maryland and we're successful, we have now a model to take to the rest of the country in the blue states. Effectively, that means creating a state association of bullion dealers who then raise the funds to lobby to make gold and silver legal tender in their state.
I have a question myself. As I said, I really enjoyed the interview you had with Kim Coleman.
Yeah.
Now, could you explain to me, Chris, and those of us who don't know the difference, Citizens for Sound Money and Citizens
Sound Money Trade Association.
Sound Money Trade Association. It's kind of sounds similar in the name. I'm assuming there's some different tasks that both are trying to accomplish.
Yeah, so Citizens for Sound Money, think of it as the grassroots organization. We are the citizens. We have citizen memberships. We're starting state chapters. We're organizing citizens in their states to start communities to educate people and legislators on sound money principles. We're also encouraging our state chapters to create sound money markets to show businesses how to transact in only gold and silver. Kind of think of a flea market where they only accept gold and silver. That's the initiative we're pushing with our state chapters. It's all about education and grassroots. The Sound Money Trade Association is specifically for the industry, like Brinks, AppMex, NGC, Annex, companies in the industry, Kinesis, UPMA, Alpine Gold, gold and silver dealers that are or wholesalers. That is, think of like Costco or whoever that sell gold and silver. That's the trade association. Citizens for Sound Money is for the citizenry, and businesses and merchants that accept gold and silver, which is the citizenry. Right? If you're not in the industry, but you're a business that accepts gold and silver, you join Citizens for Sound Money. If you are in the industry, you join the Sound Money Trade Association.
We'll both be able to, in theory, both be able to join forces to come into different states to help get sound money in the individual states, such as West Virginia and any other state.
Yeah. Think of the Sound Money Trade Association as a top-down approach and Citizens for Money as a bottom-up approach.
Okay, same sandwich that we talked about earlier.
Yep.
Okay. Chris, are you still there?
Oh, yes, I am.
Okay. I saw you muted yourself, so I just want to make sure that everything was hunky-dory.
Oh, yeah, everything's good. I had just transitioning with my son a little bit in terms of getting him where he needed to be, as we discussed earlier, and so I just didn't want to be a distraction with anything going on in the background.
No worries. Yeah, well, I kind of took the stage there. I was answering all the questions. So, did you have any input on any of the things that were brought up?
Well, the just a little bit. We were talking about of course the lobbyists. I mean, the lobbyists that are involved with this. You had mentioned passing legislation in the state of Maryland. Has there been a reception among, because obviously if state like Maryland, it's heavily Democrat. So have you gotten, what's been the reception there? Do you think there are people on the political left that might be open to some of these concepts? Because it seems like most of the people that I'm familiar with are folks on the right. They're very, if anybody's going to be in support of this, it tends to be a little bit more on the right. But I mean, have you found some potential support on the left as well?
Very much so. We have some Democratic senators and reps that are open to hearing because they had no idea that they impacted the industry so much. The reason why they got rid of the state tax, the sales taxes, was they estimated that they would be getting around $3 million in revenue a year from sales tax. But the complete opposite has happened. There is hardly any revenue coming in now through the sale of gold and silver because everybody's gone outside of the state. They don't want to pay 6% on their gold and silver purchases. So they're leaving the state, and all the money that would have been coming in, even for coin shows or events for the hotels and gas and tax, that's gone too. So that's the problem when you start taxing industries. Well, there's unintended consequences, and an unintended consequence for getting rid of the sales tax exemption was you killed an industry and you killed the revenue that was going to be coming from that industry.
Okay. All right. Well, I was just curious about that because I mean, I think that long term, if we're trying to get this legislation passed nationwide, I mean, the person posed the question about California. Yeah, it certainly it'd be a heavier lift in California, but I mean, I think going into the future, we probably do need to start thinking about, well, what would be some approaches to people on the other side of the aisle who don't normally align with us? What would maybe be some, and I don't know, I don't have any answers. I'm just brainstorming here as to maybe some arguments that would resonate with them. And I think you brought up one of them right there, Daniel, when it comes to the effects that some of these policies have on um, industries within the state of Maryland and that are within other states. And so I think that's probably I think that's a pretty compelling argument.
That is a compelling argument for those who care about numbers. There's usually conservatives that care about numbers. So, what has been very successful and how we got every single Democrat to vote for it in Florida, and we got multiple Democrats in Missouri and Texas and the rest around the country. So, this is an economic justice issue. We talk about how inflation is hurting the citizenry. 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck without $1,000 for the name. I give examples about how when I was in Missouri, I called the Uber driver, and the Uber driver told me she was 78 years old. She came out of retirement because if she didn't, her husband's pension, who passed away, her pension, Social Security, if she didn't get a job, she wouldn't eat. Uber pays for the brand new Escalade she acquired and allows her to eat. The In New Hampshire, when I was lobbying, the manager of the hotel works 3 jobs, sleeps 4 hours a night. She's a single mother. I had a 92-year-old woman in Florida. I went and spoke at a church about political activism. She wrote a note to me when I gave the presentation. She says, "I'm 92 years old, and I'm outliving my money. Please use me as an example next time you speak." And these are just 3 examples of 78% of Americans who are struggling living paycheck to paycheck, and that resonates with Democrats.
Gotcha. I mean, I think that's really compelling argument. I think that's, yeah. I mean, if when I'm talking to folks, if I ever get back into politics, I mean, I'm gonna definitely use that one. I mean, that this is a way that we can get a handle on inflation. And
Yeah.
it's been, everybody's experienced it. I mean, across the board, across the political spectrum, it impacts everybody.
Yeah, this is a nonpartisan issue. This is a human rights issue. It's an economic justice issue. And that is what's bringing both the left and the right together, because when you explain the impacts of inflation, you show them what a house was worth in gold and silver back in the 50s and what it's worth today. It's pretty much the same, but it's not the same in dollars, right? You have to go through the whole process of showing if we were still on a gold and silver standard where gold and silver was used as money, you would still have the same purchasing power today versus you using Federal Reserve notes or dollars. And just explain the theft and all that. And then when you use real world examples of people struggling and not being able to make ends meet, it really connects the emotion. And that's something that a lot of Democrats really attach to. They really care about the people And that's how you need to focus the talking points on. Every state, you have to have different talking points. In a Republican state, it's different. You talk about the numbers, you talk about the Constitution, you talk about states' rights, you talk about inflation, the numbers. With Democrats, you got to talk about the impact on the people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great approach.
Yeah. Yes. So create a citizen sound money organization in the states as the next step. Yeah. I've already appointed a state chair in Illinois. I'm waiting to hear if the guy I want to appoint in New Hampshire will take it. I have a state chair in Texas and I have a state chair in Florida. So we are soon on our website. We will have the application. I had to create a constitution, charter, and bylaws for the states. That's just, we got to get it approved by our executive team. Once that's finalized, I'll have the state chairs sign the charters and agree to the constitution of Citizen Sound Money, and then we'll have state chapters, and we'll be providing resources and training and just how getting the state chapters up and running. So the goal is to have 50 state chapters. And also, we're an international organization. So we have people interested in Australia, Canada, the UK, Ireland, Germany. We have an unofficial chapter in Turkey. We have an unofficial chapter in Israel. So we're an international organization, but we're going to be focusing mainly in the States first, getting that ramped up. Then we're going to take the model to those countries and get international charters done. There's another strategy which would likely work in West Virginia. What's that other strategy?
David, if you have another strategy, that I put that up there to give you a chance to throw your what you're thinking about up there. I don't know of another strategy. I just know that you guys are doing a great job. We need you here in West Virginia. We need Chris to keep talking to the people he's good with, and we need to get us to be the 12th state.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my theory has been that if we get between 25 to 30% of the states make gold and silver legal tender, then that might be enough pressure on the federal government to get rid of capital gains or make gold and silver legal tender again. That's my theory. We're almost there. We're at 22%. So we need one more state to get us over that 25% threshold. I think once we get a third of the country, 33% of the country, to make gold and silver legal tender, we might see that might be enough pressure to get the rest of the federal government to make it so.
One more state gives us 24%.
Yep, one more state gets. Oh, then two more states gets us at 25. So I'm waiting for David to see if he has another strategy. But I guess would this be a good time to talk about our membership?
Of course. I'm a new member, thanks to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you like what you're hearing, if you want to support the mission of Citizen Sound Money, what we're doing with the organization we chartered, Sound Money Trade Association, educate people with the Sound Money movement, which is our 501c3. Join Citizen Sound Money. Do you have the website up, or should I share my screen and go through the website?
You can. Let me see if I can bring it up. citizensforsoundmoney.org.
Yeah.
And it's giving me a bunch of errors.
I'll do it. I'll pull it up and share. Hold on. Share screen. Share entire screen. Here it is. Boom.
There it is.
All right. So if you go to citizens4soundmoney.org, go to members, click on become a member. Well, that's interesting. Is this the error you were talking about?
Well, mine had a bunch of, I can show you what mine looked like real fast. Hold on, bear with me here. Mine was really, really goofy.
I wonder if it's my browser. Let me see if I use a different browser.
Okay, mine came up looking like this.
Huh, that is interesting. That means our website might be down.
It might also be the fact about
no, it's the browser. So if you go to members, become a member, we have two membership classes. We have a $25 membership class And then we have $100 membership class. If you do $100, we'll send you a half ounce of silver. It was an ounce, but silver's gone up a lot, so we had to cut it back to a half ounce. We are a nonprofit. So you'll get about $24 worth of Kinesis silver. And you also get access to something called metal markup for our physical stackers. Metal markup, I'll go here, is the best bullion aggregator. Oh, I have to log in. Hold on. Let me log in. There it is. Oop. Log in. The metal markup is the best bullion aggregator. It will show you the cheapest gold and silver prices in the U.S. and Canada. So right now, obviously, junk silver or constitutional silver is the cheapest, but it'll show you where you can buy the cheapest bullion in the U.S. for silver. Same with gold, and then in Canada, it's in Canadian dollars. It shows you what the price is there. So this is an exclusive membership for our Pioneer members. So if you want to support our mission and get access, this is even better than Fine Bullion prices. We regularly go to Fine Bullion prices, compare our aggregator, and we beat it 9 times out of 10. So go to Studies for Sound Money, become a member, join at 25 or 100. Right now, we're trying to get our instructions on how you get your half ounce of silver automated. We just created a new website, so things have changed. And if you want to support our YouTube channel, YouTube right here, you can go to @4soundmoney. Right here, this is it right here. Let me go to there you go, @soundmoney, and follow us. We have thanks to Tiger, we broke 1,000. We're at 1,110 or 11 members. Thank you, Tiger, for that. And please subscribe. We're trying to get to 2,000, and please check out our playlists. We're trying to get to that 3,000 hour views. I think we're at around 1,100 hours. So go through all our interviews, check it out. If you watch it, it'll help us get monetized so that we can start raising some funding that way. But yeah, if you are interested in even getting a tax deduction, go to soundmoneymovement.org, and you can donate to one of our educational initiatives. Let's see. Hopefully this website's working. Yeah. So you can give a tax-deductible donation to our grant fund, our TV show, our curriculum program. We're creating curriculum from pre-K up to college level, and our Sound Money Academy, which will be an online academy where you can learn about financial literacy and sound money principles, and also learn how to do lobbying, citizen lobbying. So that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I can tell you that I've been really happy to actually join them. I'm still learning. As you all know, I'm not the best computer person in the world, but I am learning. I got a few other things to do in my professional life to get that done first, but I will be doing that. And I've also joined Goldbacks and also Alpine Gold, and they have been gracious enough to let me become an affiliate. So, if you ever do anything through Alpine Gold and you mentioned Tiger Stacker sent you, I get some proceeds, helps with the expense of running this YouTube channel and buying better equipment in the future. So, but the biggest thing is I want you all to start getting yourselves prepared, because they want to push digital everything on us. We need to have a strong grassroots movement.
Yeah.
Which is why I want everyone to understand how legislation works. Contact your senators and your delegates in your state to push in the legislation of your state to get sound money in your state.
Absolutely. So I saw David responded with some solutions.
Here we go. Let me find him.
The one before that. There's one before that.
Looking.
Educate powerful interest groups in West Virginia on how the fiat system is hurting their members, regardless of party affiliation, and have those groups influence legislators on these issues. That is easier said than done. So, uh, I think the one interest group that might work are credit unions, because credit unions are nonprofits and they're always looking for a way to um, take business from banks. So I've had conversations with credit unions, but like the physicians, I mean, it's hard to convince an interest, a special interest that is large on changing that system. Maybe the realtors. I mean, that's an angle, David. I'm open to it, but I find that most people don't understand economics. They were probably trained. If they were trained in economics, they're Keynesians. So they don't believe in a gold and silver standard. I mean, it's like I have some family members that think I'm insane for pushing gold and silver because they've done well with their fiat currency and they don't see any problem with the system. And that's unfortunately a majority of the people that I come across. And special interests, we're a very small minority in the sound money movement. Where it's growing. Don't get me wrong, we're much larger now than we were just 5 years ago. But it's hard to convince people without proper education. So that's why we have the Sound Money Movement Education Foundation. That's why we have the Sound Money Trade Association, which is partnering with our C3 to educate. That's why we're doing Sound Money seminars and Sound Money Merchant seminars and Sound Money Legislative seminars. We have to educate the public because so few people understand how economics actually work. And if what you can do, if you're watching this right now, if you have not watched episode of Hidden Secrets of Money, episode 4, I'm going to pull that up if you don't mind, and I'm going to just show people, not the episode, but where they can find it, Tiger.
Okay.
Where is it? Hidden Secrets of Money, episode 4. There it is. Let me grab episode 4. There it is. Let me pause it. All right, so let's go here. Let me share my screen. Present, share, which screen? Here it is. So if you go to it's called The Biggest Scam. It's called The Biggest Scam in the History of Mankind. This is about a 25-minute video. It is probably the best video that you can watch if you've never watched it to understand how the government and the central bank steal the wealth from us, how the economy actually works. And then you share that for episode 4, and you text it to your family, you text it to your friends, in fact, how about this? I'm going to post the link. I'm going to post the link, share, copy, so that everybody can. Is that a short code? No, I guess it's short code. There. Watch that, guys. After the broadcast, watch this link, watch this video. It will change your life. It completely changed my life. And it will probably change anybody's life that you show it to. It is absolutely necessary that you watch that because it will inform you. And the reaction when we show this in our Sound Money seminars, people get angry. They don't realize how bad the theft is. And then they want to get involved. This is the most powerful video right now. We're creating videos that are shorter, that really summarize it. But Mike Maloney does a phenomenal job. When I watched this, it changed my life 2 years ago. And it got me into gold and silver when I used to be a crypto miner and blockchain consultant. So
Daniel, can you put that in the YouTube side so I can pin it?
I did. I posted it on there. I think Ellie.
I see. Oh, Ellie did it.
No. I see. If you scroll up, I thought I did.
No. It's on your side because I got this little thing that's like a parenthesis on one side, a parenthesis on the other, and a dash in the middle means it's not on my side. It's on your side, linked here.
Oh, hold on. I think that's your channel. Is this your channel? Hold on. I'm on your. Yeah, I'm on your channel. Oh no, hold on.
No, that double parenthesis with the minus sign in the middle means it's linked into this stream, but it's not on this channel.
Oh, got you. Let me try something else.
Yeah, I found that out about a year and a half ago.
How about now?
I'm waiting.
You made me a moderator. Should I? Oh yeah, Ellie pinned episode 4 already.
Okay, so it must be this one here. Oh, come on, computer. Here we go. Pin.
But
Okay,
yeah, guys,
there you go.
if you want to learn more and educate yourself about how the system actually works, if you've never heard about Hidden Secrets of Money, you need to watch it. Actually, if you haven't if you've watched Hidden Secrets of Money, put a 1. If you haven't seen Hidden Secrets of Money, put a 2. Let's see you guys get active. Put a 1 if you have, and 2 if you haven't. Or did I say the other way around?
You said 1 if you did and 2 if you didn't.
Right, 2 if you didn't. Yeah, let's see if how many people have seen. 1. Ellie has. All right. Yeah, for those of you putting a 2, you need to watch it. It's going to change. It's going to blow your mind. It's going to get you angry, and you're going to want to tell everybody about it. So definitely watch that tonight after the broadcast. Yeah, 1.
I certainly will.
Perfect.
I might have to take the wife to movies first, but I'll watch it after that.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, I'm probably gonna head out shortly, Tiger, to get some dinner.
Well, so, I understand that.
Yeah, I got some steak thawing, picanha. It's one of my favorite cuts of steak. For those who don't know what it is, it's a beautiful round rump cut with a fat cap. It's Brazilian, so I'm looking forward to cooking that up.
Understood. And it looks like we hit 25 likes, so I'll be giving away a silver dime.
Nice.
So, I'm going to give you all about maybe 60 seconds to put something in the chat. So do it now, or you be there or be square. So, Chris, are you still with us?
I am. Yeah, just as something to close out on this, Tiger and Daniel, I just want to hit home to everybody that it's really, really important that if you have time to just start getting involved in your local movement, start trying to have an impact, because you really can. You can have a huge impact. I mean, if you're involved, if you have time, if there's a way to support a legislator in your local community who is going to push for these sorts of issues, back them. Do whatever you can to help them win, and get on their radar. Start getting active, because that's how things get done. Look, in a lot of times people are of the mindset that, well, voting is enough. Voting is not enough. It's really important. If you care about an issue, it's not enough to just go out there and vote. You really need to get active and get involved. And you can. And the thing about it too is you can meet like-minded people. Some of the best people that I've met have been people who are involved in the political scene, who align with me on issues. I mean, they're people who are really, really solid, who you can work together with, you can brainstorm on ideas, and you can really have a true impact. It's something that you can do, and you can do as little of it or as much of it as you want. I mean, look, it's your time, okay? And if you can just start getting involved on your local level, or if there's not a local chapter, you could start a local chapter. Talk to Daniel, start a local chapter. You could be the person who starts the chapter in your state, and then you can start organizing around that.
Absolutely. And if you're interested in opening up a state chapter, I'm putting my email, not my email, the support email, citizensoundmoney.org. So you can email us and say that you saw me on Tiger's broadcast. You're interested in becoming a state chair or opening up a chapter in your state, and we can. If you don't want to be the state chair, we can find somebody who does. All right, I just posted it everywhere. So that's our email, support@citizensforsoundmoney.org. Write in there and let us know that you want to become, you want to start a state organization in your state, and we'll go ahead and start the process. And either appoint you or find somebody you think will be best to run the state organization.
Sounds good. Let me recheck my harvesting. Yep, same number of people. So let me go ahead and pull up the tiger wheel. And share the screen. And I'll go ahead and turn down the volume because some people say it's too loud. And Ellie, the email is I don't know, it should have crossed over. It looks like support@citizensforsoundmoney.org.
Yeah, I posted it in there.
Okay, we're going to harvest the names. And good luck, everyone.
Michael and Nancy Stacking. Congratulations.
Michael, send me a claiming email. I'm kind of grateful because if it would have went any further, I had to double it if it would have went into my name. So Michael and Nancy, send me a claiming email. I'll send you off the silver dime. I was kind of hoping that maybe we'd get up to 50 likes, but a lot of other YouTubers are streaming at this time, and it's okay. It just is what it is. So, we're now at almost 2 hours, and we need to get my buddy Daniel invested with his stake.
Yep.
I just came back from Red Lobster just before I came here, so I'm good. So, but I want to thank both Chris Pitt and Daniel Diaz for being here, teaching you all. And I sure hope that Chris and Daniel and everybody else that's involved with Sound Money is going to help get it in this state. Please contact your legislators and bring this to your states. We need volume of people, volume of states. So, and join Citizens for Sound Money. Please subscribe to Citizens for Sound Money on YouTube. I think he's also on X.
Yes. The same handle as YouTube, for Sound Money.
Okay. I'm not on X. I got to learn how to do that. But if those of you who have not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. I want to get to 5,000 subscribers, at which time I'm going to be giving off 5 ounces of silver, poured or regular, don't care. Just as long as this channel builds and we get the name out there, because my channel is interested in protecting all of you. And if you don't believe it, go watch some of the stuff.
Hey, Tiger?
Yes, sir.
Michael and Nancy Stacking is asking a question. Who in the Ohio State House is backing Sound Money? So there is a bill. It's HB 206. That bill, the way that it's currently written, we do not support. We believe it's unconstitutional, and it is there's a lot of problems with the bill. So we don't want to kill the legislation, but we're open to working with the two sponsors to fix the legislation. It's now on, I think it's going to be heard on Wednesday at a committee hearing. I know that Goldback is going to be flying in to lobby and speak against the current version of the bill. And we're offering our services in Ohio. So if any Ohio legislators are watching this, that's two sponsors, or maybe there's more now. But I reached out to them on the House and the Senate side and sent them an email earlier this year because it's been on the docket for a while. But it's now, I think it's going to be heard in committee on Wednesday. So I forget the name of the two legislators. You can look it up. I think it's HB 206. Let me find that. HB 206 Ohio 2025. Yeah, it establishes transactional currency. It's looks like Jennifer Gross and Royden McLean in the House. So it's 2 sponsors. It's in a House committee right now, and it's on its way through the system. So the problem with this legislation, it creates electronic payment system, makes electronic gold and silver legal tender, and it has to state, I think, RFPing and doing everything we discussed earlier in this broadcast. So we want to get the Ohio bill in a good posture. Recommend, actually, if you're in Ohio, call those legislators and tell them to look at the ALEC legislation. And just there's a part where it talks about the treasurer creating and managing the electronic payment systems. Just maybe cut that out, email it to them. I'll do that as well. But just tell them to look at ALEC. Even if they do the ALEC version, that's fine. It's not the best. But the Ohio bill right now, we have issues. We've talked to our other companies that are lobbying in the state. They know there's issues. We don't want to kill it. We just want to fix it.
Good thing to bring up. Thank you. And they are from Ohio, so he says he's going to call his legislative people.
Perfect. Yeah, so and they need to hear from you. It's one thing to hear from lobbyists, but when citizens start calling and grassroots, if you're in Ohio, give them a call.
And call frequently.
Call frequently, email, show up. It's best if you show up. If you show up in person, you count as if you were representing 10,000 people. If you email, it's like 50 people. You make a phone call, it's like maybe a couple hundred people. A handwritten letter is like 1,000 voters. In person represents like 10,000 voters.
Sounds good.
All right, and I'm done. I just wanted to answer that question.
We need to feed you, my friend. So thanks again for coming, everyone. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Chris.
Yep. Thanks so much, Tiger.
You're more than welcome, my friend. Anytime, any day.